The order arrived shortly before dawn, stamped with authority and written in language so cold it barely concealed its meaning. It instructed the unit to proceed to a village east of the river, gather the population, and carry out security measures against suspected partisan collaborators. Everyone in the barracks understood what that phrase meant by now. It meant executions. It meant burning homes. It meant silence afterward. Lieutenant Marcus Keller read the paper twice, his jaw tightening. He had been an officer in the Wehrmacht for nearly 4 years, long enough to understand the transformation that had taken place within the army. What had once been presented as a disciplined military force had become, in many places, an instrument of terror. Marcus folded the paper carefully and slipped it into his coat, as if hiding it might reduce its weight. It did not. Around him, the men stirred awake, pulling on boots stiff with dried mud and frozen blood. Some moved mechanically, eyes dull, minds already resigned. Others joked nervously, clinging to routine as a way to survive the day. Marcus watched them closely. He had learned that resistance did not announce itself loudly. It hid in hesitation, in glances exchanged, in hands that trembled just slightly when weapons were checked. Among the men was Corporal Lucas Adler, once a schoolteacher from Hamburg, now hardened by the Eastern Front, but not emptied of conscience. Nearby stood Otto Weiss, a farm boy who had never fired his rifle at a civilian, but had seen enough to know what awaited the village. Their eyes met briefly. No words were spoken, but something passed between them: recognition, fear, and a question neither dared ask aloud. The trucks rolled out as the sky lightened to a pale gray. Snow blanketed the fields, muffling sound and giving the landscape an eerie calm. Marcus sat in the lead vehicle, staring ahead, replaying the order in his mind. He had followed commands before that made him uneasy. This one felt different. This one demanded participation in something irreversible. The village appeared suddenly, a cluster of wooden houses nestled among bare trees. Smoke curled from chimneys, a sign of life continuing in ignorance of what approached. Marcus raised his hand, signaling the convoy to stop at the edge of the road. The men dismounted, rifles slung, boots crunching softly against the snow. Children were the first to notice them. A boy no older than 10 stared wide-eyed from behind a fence before running inside a house. Marcus felt a familiar tightening in his chest. He had seen this scene too many times. The difference was no longer in the village, but in himself. The commanding officer assigned to oversee the operation, Hauptmann Vogel, barked orders with practiced efficiency. Villagers were to be gathered in the square. Men separated from women. Anyone suspected of aiding partisans was to be executed immediately. No delays. No excuses. As the soldiers moved through the village, Marcus deliberately slowed his pace. He positioned Lucas and Otto near the rear, assigning them to secure the perimeter. It was a meaningless task militarily, but it kept them away from the square for the moment. Inside one house, Marcus encountered an elderly couple kneeling beside a stove, whispering prayers. They looked up at him with a mixture of fear and resignation. He hesitated, then gestured subtly toward the back door. "Go," he said quietly, in a voice barely louder than the crackling fire. They did not wait to be told twice. Outside, the square filled with villagers. Hauptmann Vogel strode among them, pointing, shouting, selecting men seemingly at random. A firing squad was assembled with chilling speed. Marcus was ordered to contribute men from his platoon. This was the moment he had dreaded. Refusal would be immediate suicide. Obedience would be something far worse. He selected soldiers he trusted, men who had shown hesitation before, men who looked away when atrocities unfolded. Lucas was among them. Otto as well. They took their positions, rifles raised, faces pale. The condemned men were lined up against a wall. Some stared defiantly. Others wept openly. One man clutched a photograph, lips moving silently. Marcus stood behind the firing squad, his heart pounding so loudly he was certain others could hear it. The command to fire was imminent. Marcus took a step forward. "Hauptmann," he said, carefully controlling his voice, "we have not confirmed partisan activity. This may provoke retaliation." Vogel turned sharply, eyes narrowing. "Are you questioning orders, Lieutenant?" "I am suggesting caution," Marcus replied. "If intelligence is flawed, higher command will want confirmation." The pause lasted only seconds, but it felt endless. Vogel weighed the words, irritated but not entirely dismissive. Finally, he snapped, 5 minutes. "Then we proceed." It was enough. Marcus moved quickly. He leaned close to Lucas and Otto, whispering instructions in fragments. Misfires. Aim low. Delay. Confusion. When the command was given again, the rifles fired, but not as intended. Shots went wide. One weapon jammed. Another discharged into the ground. Shouts erupted. The villagers screamed. Vogel cursed, demanding order. In the chaos, Marcus shouted contradictory commands, directing soldiers to secure imaginary threats at the edge of the village. Several condemned men broke free and ran. Some were cut down by other units, but others vanished into the trees. It was not a complete rescue. Marcus knew that, but it was not total annihilation either. The aftermath was tense. Vogel raged, threatening investigations and punishment. Marcus stood at attention, accepting blame for operational confusion. It was a dangerous gamble, but Vogel, under pressure to complete objectives and move on, chose to file a report blaming faulty equipment and unreliable intelligence. That night, Marcus did not sleep. He sat alone in a ruined farmhouse, staring at his hands. They were shaking. He had crossed a line he could never uncross. And yet, for the first time in months, he did not feel hollow. Word spread quietly. Lucas spoke to a medic who had looked the other way. Otto helped a woman escape under cover of darkness. Small acts multiplied, invisible to those who did not know where to look. Over the following weeks, Marcus learned the limits of refusal. Some orders could be delayed. Others could only be partially subverted. There were days when he failed, when he arrived too late, when fear won. Those days haunted him more than the successes sustained him. But something fundamental had changed. The unthinkable, mass murder, unquestioned brutality, had become something he could no longer accept as inevitable. Each refusal, no matter how small, reaffirmed his humanity. Winter deepened. Orders grew harsher. The risks increased. Marcus knew that discovery meant a firing squad, a shallow grave, and silence. Yet he also knew that obedience had its own cost, one paid not in life but in soul. As the war dragged on, the number of men like Marcus quietly grew. They did not form organizations. They did not speak openly. They simply refused, again and again, in small ways, to become what the war demanded. And in doing so, they proved that even in a world built on terror, the unthinkable could still be refused. Spring arrived reluctantly on the Eastern Front, melting snow into mud and exposing what winter had buried. Roads turned into rivers of filth, villages into ruins that smelled of smoke and decay. For Lieutenant Marcus Keller, the change of season brought no relief. Instead, it brought scrutiny. Reports from multiple villages showed a troubling pattern. Executions delayed, fewer casualties than expected, confused operations. Individually, the incidents could be explained. Together, they formed a shape that higher command did not like. The first warning came in the form of an inspection notice. An officer from Army headquarters would arrive within days to evaluate discipline and effectiveness. Marcus read the notice in silence, then folded it with care. He knew what inspections meant. They were not meant to improve units. They were meant to identify weakness. Among the men, tension thickened. Lucas Adler stopped speaking openly. Otto Weiss avoided eye contact with officers. Even routine patrols felt dangerous now, every gesture observed, every hesitation noted. The inspector arrived with a polished uniform and eyes that missed nothing. Major Hartmann spoke softly, politely, asking questions that seemed harmless but cut deep. How many executions had been carried out? How many villages secured? Why did ammunition usage not match reported engagements? Marcus answered calmly, sticking to official language. Equipment failures, poor weather, incomplete intelligence. Each explanation was true enough to stand on its own. Together, they formed a fragile shield. But Hartmann was patient. During one inspection, he watched as villagers were questioned. Marcus noticed how the major's gaze lingered on Lucas, on Otto, on the way rifles were held just a fraction too loosely. Fear crept into Marcus's thoughts, cold and precise. This man was not looking for mistakes. He was looking for men who still thought. That night, Marcus gathered Lucas, Otto, and a handful of others in an abandoned cellar. Their faces were drawn, shadows sharp under lantern light. "They're closing in," Marcus said quietly. "We must assume we're being watched." Otto swallowed. "Then we stop." "No," Marcus replied. "We become more careful. If we stop now, everything we've done means nothing." Lucas looked at him steadily. "And if they catch us?" Marcus did not answer immediately. When he did, his voice was steady. "Then we pay the price. But we do not become executioners to save ourselves. The next operation was designed as a test. A village near the river was accused of sheltering partisans. Hartmann insisted on accompanying the unit. Marcus understood immediately. This was not about the village. It was about watching him. Every instinct told Marcus to abandon interference, to follow orders precisely. But as they entered the village, he saw the same familiar sights: frightened faces, children clinging to mothers, old men unable to stand straight. Hartmann observed from the edge of the square, arms folded. Orders were given. Men were lined up. Marcus's mind raced. Any obvious sabotage would be noticed. Delay would be questioned. He needed something different, something that appeared to be obedience. He stepped forward and spoke loudly enough for Hartmann to hear. "We will proceed by regulation. Verification first." Hartmann raised an eyebrow, but said nothing. Marcus questioned villagers methodically, translating vague accusations into precise inquiries. Names were checked. Stories compared. It took time. Time that allowed some villagers to slip away. Time that diluted the urgency of violence. Hartmann watched. And waited. Finally, a small group of men was selected. Smaller than expected. Marcus ordered them taken aside. No firing squad yet. Hartmann approached him. "You are thorough, Lieutenant." "I was trained to be," Marcus replied. Hartmann studied him for a long moment. "Thoroughness can resemble hesitation. Or discipline," Marcus countered carefully. That night, the village remained standing. No executions took place. Hartmann made no comment. 2 days later, Lucas was arrested. They took him at dawn, accusing him of spreading defeatist attitudes. Marcus watched helplessly as he was led away, hands bound, face bruised from questioning. Their eyes met briefly. Lucas gave a small nod, not of fear, but of resolve. Interrogations followed. Marcus was summoned repeatedly, asked about Lucas, about morale, about deviations from orders. He answered cautiously, aware that every word could be fatal. Otto grew increasingly withdrawn. One night, he confessed to Marcus that he could no longer sleep. "I see their faces," he whispered. "I don't know how much longer I can do this." Marcus understood. Resistance did not make men stronger. It made them fragile in a world that rewarded cruelty. Weeks passed. Lucas did not return. Then came the order that shattered any illusion of safety. A large-scale reprisal was planned following a partisan attack. Several villages were to be cleared entirely. There would be no delays, no inspections, no ambiguity. Marcus read the order knowing what it meant. This time, there would be no space to maneuver, no subtle sabotage. Obedience meant massacre. That night, he made a decision he had avoided for months. He called Otto and 2 others into the cellar. "Tomorrow," he said, "we do not interfere quietly. We interfere openly." Otto stared at him. "That's suicide." "Yes," Marcus replied. "But so is silence." At dawn, as the unit prepared to move, Marcus stepped forward before orders could be carried out. His voice rang across the assembly. "I will not participate in this operation." Silence fell like a blow. Hauptmann Vogel stared at him in disbelief. Hartmann's expression hardened. "You are refusing a direct order," Hartmann said calmly. "Yes," Marcus replied. His hands trembled, but his voice did not. "I will not lead men to murder civilians." Weapons were raised instantly. Otto took a step forward, then another. "Neither will I." A third soldier followed. Then another. Not many. Just enough. They were arrested on the spot. The trial was swift and secret. No defense. No witnesses. Marcus stood in a cold room, stripped of rank, listening as charges were read. Treason. Cowardice. Undermining military discipline. As he was led away, he saw villagers being guided into the forest by soldiers who avoided his gaze. Even now, the quiet resistance continued. The execution was scheduled for dawn. In the final hours, Marcus felt fear like a living thing. But beneath it was something else, an unexpected calm. He had drawn his line. He had not crossed it. As he stood before the firing squad, he recognized some of the men holding rifles. Their eyes were wet. One rifle trembled. The command was given. Shots rang out. History would not record Marcus Keller's name. His refusal would not change the outcome of the war. The villages would still burn. Orders would still be carried out. But somewhere, people would live who otherwise would not have. And among the men who survived the war, there would be those who remembered that even in uniform, even under threat of death, it had been possible to refuse the unthinkable.